In his final act, Arthur demonstrated just what kind of man he truly was. A man who always put others before himself. And sadly, this noble act, this praise to his character, would be his undoing. Lay our beloved brother Arthur to rest. Allow the love of God, a love that surpasses all human understanding.
Hey Mary, gentleman over by the wall that wanted you to have this. Says he gives his condolences. Welcome back to GCN Live with Jack Ryder. Today we continue looking at our top story as Gotham City Police Commissioner Gillian Loeb announces the creation of a new police task force created for the sole purpose of hunting the mass vigilante dubbed as the Batman. As both the sword and shield of justice, it is both our duty and obligation to protect not only the security of Gotham, but its citizens as well. This is why the
Give me a break. Morning, Grayson. Any luck with last night?
None. He spent most of his time talking to other guests, and I wasn't able to hear anything of interest from his phone call. Couldn't even tell you who he was talking to, thanks to Bruce Wayne interrupting.
It was worth a shot at least. Though, with cops all over City Hall, he was hardly likely to drop his guard. Thankfully, I think we might have another lead.
On Nigma?
Possibly. We finally got the paperwork for that shipment, and it turns out the order was made using an import license, registered to Ace Chemicals.
But if the shipment was for Ace Chemicals, then why weren't they there to pick it up? They haven't even reported it stolen.
The same thought crossed my mind, so I phoned their offices and spoke with the chief executive officer, and it turns out he never authorized or even knew about the shipment. I asked him to check their files and find out who made the order and what material it was. He got back to me this morning and confirmed the material was Venomous Agent X, also known as VX.
VX, as in the nerve agent. I thought that stuff was illegal. How the hell are they allowed to bring it into Gotham?
Well, according to him, Ace Chemicals has been working alongside the World Health Organization to develop a vaccine that could be used to inoculate soldiers from the effects of VX. They've had clearance to bring samples into Gotham for their research, but at the time of this order, Ace Chemicals has already used their yearly supply of VX and didn't require any more for at least 6 months. Which begs the question, if they didn't need any more for their research, then why was more ordered?
Because it was meant for someone else.
Exactly. And better yet, we know who organized the shipment.
Who?
Dr. Jonathan Crane.
Our great city has been plagued by dark days for too long, but we must be vigilant. We must continue...
Your hunch was right, sir. The police never released Mike Fallon's name to the public before or after his death, and they never informed Edward either.
Then there's no way he could know about his death. Unless...
he had something to do with it.
I can't see any other explanation. But if he is behind this, the question is, why? Why would a man like Edward Nigma be involved in this?
Well, to be fair, Mr. Wayne, we don't even know what this is yet. We're dealing with a group of unknown individuals who have now killed at least 3 men and have acquired a nerve agent for an as of which unknown objective.
What about the police officer that was tailing Nigma? Did you find a match?
Yes, Detective Richard Grayson of the Metropolis Police Department, here on transfer, working with the GCPD Homicide Department on the Nigma Core case, headed by Lieutenant James Gordon.
This Gordon, can he be trusted?
Despite your hatred for the GCPD, Master Wayne, I can assure you Jim Gordon is one of the few good police officers left in this city. He led the investigations that took down the Falcone crime family. If there's one man in this city you can trust to play by the book, it's him.
I'll take your word for it, Alfred. I need to know his investigation into Nigma has something other than corruption to go on. It appears he has nothing concrete yet. Just speculation, same as us.
Then we should start looking for something we can use. The phone you gave me didn't give us any new information. Whatever network it's been operating on is shut down.
It was only a matter of time before they figured out the phone led us to the docks. They're trying to cover their tracks.
There we are. Here, try it on.
Are you sure this works, Lucius?
If it doesn't, you're very welcome to display it on your mantelpiece. Now, once the visor is down, things will go dark for a moment, so don't panic.
Impressive, Lucius. Very impressive.
Visuals appear to be fully functional. Now let's see if the scanner works. All right, Mr. Wayne, if you could please analyze Alfred by adjusting the scanner. Once you get facial recognition, you should receive a visual link allowing his identity, vitals, and any records about Alfred that are stored in the digital database.
Let's see. Name, Alfred J. Pennyworth. White male of British descent. 62 years of age. Heart rate at 85 BPM and body temperature of 38 degrees Celsius. Oral traces of single malt whiskey and smoked haddock. And traces of hair on the sleeve of his jacket belonging to myself. All right. The scanner and forensics seem to work well enough. Now, the real work begins. So far, looking at Nigma hasn't gotten us far. So let's start outside the puzzle and work our way in. Start with our killer cop, Vincent Adler.
Born and raised in Metropolis City, 42 years of age, a former U.S. Army Ranger turned gun for hire. Used to be in the employ of one Moxie Mannheim, former Don of the Intergang before his eldest son Bruno took over.
That's a polite way of phrasing it.
In 2018, Adler was arrested for the murder of Tony Bellero, former Don of the Bellero crime family. He served 2 of his 20-year sentence in Metropolis State Penitentiary before escaping during an insurrection. After that, the trail went cold.
Makes sense he'd come to Gotham. It's a perfect place for a man of his profession.
Okay, let's track his movements after the GCPD murder. He wasn't among the group that killed Fallon, so he must have headed straight for the docks, most likely to avoid the police.
It's not the only thing he avoided. He clearly anticipated the surveillance, but I managed to catch him boarding a train heading for the Narrows before disembarking at a station on 42nd Street. Then entering a black SUV 5 minutes later, which headed towards the industrial district. The car dropped Adler off at the loading bay 12 before heading east and disappearing near Ravenswood Road.
What about the white box truck?
It also seemed to disappear near Ravenswood Road, next to the underground parking lot. Only person I could ID was Adler. The rest wore masks.
Yes, what was with those green outfits anyway? Not a very subtle way of remaining covert.
Must be some kind of trademark uniform for this gang. But I've never seen this criminal group before. Had they been active in Gotham before?
Nothing in recent news feeds or police files.
Just what this city needs. A new criminal outlet. One thing for certain though, Master Bruce, is that they must be very powerful if they can operate in the industrial district without Sionis having them killed. Or murder a man outside one of Cobblepot's clubs and receive no backlash.
You're right. It's as if this gang has free reign over Gotham's criminal territories, which either means they're amateurs trying their luck, or, more likely, they have some kind of influence or deal with the other operations.
I'd bet on the latter. I'm still waiting to find out who authorized the purchase and delivery of the VX gas. Accessing X Chemicals and Trident Shipping's network without permission is taking a lot longer than expected.
We can't afford to wait for them to make their next move. We have to find the VX and stop whatever they have planned. I'll head over to the parking lot and start there. How soon can you wire the detective vision into the suit?
It'll take at least a day, maybe longer. But since you're short on time, I recommend you use the prototype helmet instead. And with the police task force searching the city for the Batman, it might be best to wear something less conspicuous.
Agreed. Alfred, I need you to go home and bring the headache pills to Lucius for further analysis. There's something about those drugs we don't know. Whatever it is, Fallon and his partner were killed to keep it hidden.
I do apologize for being so frank over the phone, Lieutenant, but the nature of this subject is something that can't be discussed through unsecure channels.
Are you implying the GCPD isn't a secure channel?
Point blankly. Look, Lieutenant, you and I both know the GCPD aren't exactly known these days for their legitimacy or security. Corruption is rife and the majority of its staff are on the payroll of organized crime. And considering 2 of the men involved in your current case have already been murdered, one of whom being in your custody at the time, then well, it doesn't exactly make me trustworthy of you. I can't afford to trust sensitive information to police that may very well be corrupt.
We're not corrupt, sir.
That may very well be, son, but the fact remains.
Mr. Thornwood, I understand you have no reason to trust me or Detective Grayson. But before you turn us away and make any further accusations, I think you should know a little about my department. When I first joined Homicide, nearly 15 years ago, I was a detective in training. And perhaps one of the only officers in that department who wasn't corrupt. My partner, the other detectives, even my lieutenant, were all on the payroll of Carmine Falcone. Case after case, they falsified evidence, intimidated witnesses, and lied on the witness stand. But not me. When they went home for the night, I'd stay up and find what they had hidden, corrected what they'd changed. I tracked down every last shred of evidence I could until I got the truth. Eventually, they all caught on to what I was doing. They threatened to have me killed if I continued to stick my nose where it didn't belong. But despite that, I continued to fight the corruption, so that what little justice remained in the city just might, for once, prevail. Eventually, I was able to use all the evidence I had saved over the years to put Falcone and everyone in his pocket behind bars. Soon after, I was promoted to lieutenant. I was finally able to clean up the department and start anew with officers I could trust to help me. Officers who at this very moment were fighting the corruption of the city in order to bring justice to the lives of so many people. So please, Mr. Thornwood, help justice prevail today.
Crane was, to put it quite frankly, a genius in chemical engineering, one of the greatest minds in his field, but also a very damaged one too.
Damaged? In what way?
Not to speak ill, but it was obvious he suffered from mental illness. The last few months he was with us, several members of staff, myself included, had noticed him becoming more and more erratic. He started mumbling incoherently while working. He'd skip eating lunch and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. I could tell he wasn't taking care of himself, so eventually I was left with no other choice but to suspend him until he got professional help.
Did he?
I'm afraid to say he didn't. Not that it matters now.
If he was suspended from working, then how did he manage to order the VX?
That's the thing, Lieutenant. He didn't.
I don't understand. When we spoke on the phone, you said it was his company ID that was used to make the order.
I did, but I never said he used it. The order was dated November 21st. That very same night we had a break-in. Nothing was stolen though, so in the end there was nothing we could do. But when I heard about the shipment on the news, I checked our records and discovered the order dated the same night the break-in took place.
So you believe Crane gave this intruder his ID so that he could enter the facility and arrange the VX shipment?
What? Of course not. Crane's ID was stolen. He had nothing to do with this.
What makes you think that?
Lieutenant, how the hell could Crane have been involved if he died almost 4 weeks ago?
I'm here. No sign of the truck or the SUV. No sign of any security either.
That's odd. According to the records, there's supposed to be at least one guard on duty at all times.
No working surveillance, no security guard, and the lot just so happens to be underground and out of sight. Perfect place to hide something. Time to find where it is.
Detective Vision is synced and online. I'm getting the feed through now. That's odd. I'm detecting an area, or hollow ground, just in front of you. Approximately 30 feet in length and 12 in width.
More than big enough to fit a box truck. I'm seeing a power line underneath. I think it must be some kind of platform. Can you lower it?
No way to access it as far as I can see.
There's a vent on the ceiling. Looks like it goes behind this wall and straight down. There must be an exit at the bottom. Looks like we found our missing vehicles. Must be at least 100 feet or so down. Anything on file?
It looks like you're in a part of the abandoned underground that connects to old Gotham. But there's nothing in the building schematics that shows the platform or the old tunnel.
Well, it's not so abandoned anymore.
Good God. Is he?
Yes. Looks like he's been here a while, but his eyes, Lucius, he's clawed his own eyes out.
Oh, that's awful. Why? Why would he do that?
It's a known side effect of an LSD overdose. The drug can induce powerful hallucinogenic episodes. Sometimes they can become so severe, the victim will do anything to get rid of them, including clawing their own eyes out in a mass panic. But I'm not detecting any traces of LSD on his skin or clothing. He's been killed by something else. Something much stronger.
The VX?
Unlikely. He does show signs of being poisoned by a chemical agent, but VX wouldn't cause any kind of hallucination. I'm going to take a blood sample.
I can analyze the sample once you get back. Hopefully it'll reveal some answers. Bruce, are you all right?
I'm not alone down here, Lucius. Wow.
How the hell did we miss this?
I'm sorry, Jim. We'd only just started looking into his background, and we were working on the assumption that he was still alive.
So what do we think? Perhaps Crane really is innocent after all, and someone just stole his ID, then burned his house down to tie loose ends and cover their tracks.
That's what it looks like. But why kill him? And in such a public display?
If he was killed over a week before the break-in at Ace Chemicals, maybe it was to avoid suspicion. Because his house burned down, everyone would just assume his ID burned with it. Why look for something you have every reason to believe burned in an accidental fire?
Yeah, that's exactly what everyone would think. It's the perfect way to cover something up, by making it look like something else. To hide it in plain sight, by splashing it on the front page of a newspaper. It's genius.
It's insane is what it is, Jim. To put this much attention to detail in a robbery and a string of murders is just insane.
This whole case is like a jigsaw puzzle without the picture on the box. It's the perfect riddle, designed by someone obsessed with accounting for every last detail.
We're getting nowhere. It's late. We should sign off and start tomorrow with clearer heads.
Agreed. Have a good night, gents.
Night, Davis. Good night, Grayson.
Good night, sir.
Yesterday upon the stair, I met a man who wasn't there. He wasn't there again today. Oh, how I wish he'd go away. Antigonish, 1899. A poem about a man who is seemingly never here nor there. But what does it really mean? There are many interpretations. Some believe he was a ghost, others a fragment of a drunk man's imagination. But I believe it's more simple than that. I believe this man was very much real as you or I. I believe he had a quarrel with those who saw him, but as a mere man he had no power or ability to frighten his enemies away. So he decided to make himself something more than just a man in their minds. So every day he would wait for them to pass. Sometimes he'd be sitting on the stairs, sometimes not. But as time went on, his enemies would start to get the sightings mixed up, thinking they had seen him 1 minute, and then he'd vanish the next. Over time, they began to believe he was a spectre that could appear and vanish into thin air whenever he so wished, a being that was not of this world, and thus should not be trifled with. So his goal was complete, and all because he mastered the single greatest weapon in the history of mankind. Fear. The Batman employs the exact same tactics, and you let him use that against you, as has every other criminal in this once great city. You all believe his myth, and as long as you do, he remains an indestructible symbol. I must confess that I am very disappointed. Cobblepot held you in such high esteem.
Never questioning the things you're doing. Never thinking about the ways you're moving. Baby, I believe because of
Mr. Cobblepot, if you'd be so kind as to leave those poor ladies alone and move to a more appropriate place.
My apologies, sir. I wasn't expecting your call.
Evidently so. Now, would you be kind enough to explain to me why your Toppen forces have failed to deliver what you promised?
I'm sorry, but I don't follow.
You don't? Well, let me clear up the confusion, shall I? I don't know what kind of game you think you're playing, Penguin, but when a man promises me something, I expect him to see it through. Fail me again, or do so much as lie to me, then you'll suffer the same fate as your beloved enforcer. Let this serve as your first and final warning.
Darling, dinner.
Are you sure you weren't mauled by a tiger?
What have I said about you making jokes, Alfred?
That my timing is piss poor, sir. Still, we should be thankful your injuries aren't more serious. A few inches deeper on this one and you would have bled to death.
Well, thankfully I'm not so easily killed.
Not for lack of trying.
Here we are. This is the clearest image I could get of the attackers. Any idea who they are?
I know.
What? How?
It was during my time at the ICC. Must be almost 20 years ago now. We'd been investigating one of the biggest drug smuggling rings in Europe. Eventually, after over a year of reports from our undercover sources, we found out the ring was headed by the chairman of the French Shipping Union. So we mobilized a raid on one of his warehouses during a meeting he was believed to have been attending. But someone else got there first. When we arrived, all we found was a room full of slaughter.
Who are they?
No one knows for certain, but to anyone aware of their reputation, they're known as the Kabuki twins, the most lethal killers in modern history. You're perhaps the only person to have ever survived an encounter with them, Bruce.
How did they end up in Gotham?
I don't know, but after the chairman's death, his operation collapsed almost overnight, and whatever remnants of it survived are rumored to have fallen into the hands of Oswald Cobblepot.
So what do you think? Is Cobblepot behind all this?
Gordon spent days chemicals. They're looking into Crane.
Then he's found the next riddle in the great conundrum.
Shouldn't we be worried, sir? If Gordon finds a lead he can act on.
If he finds a lead he can act upon, only then shall it be dealt with. I have no desire to take life wastefully, Adler. Showing our hand in such a careless way will only lead to further inconvenience. The police have made their first move, and I have made mine. Now, it's his turn. Boss, it's him! He's downstairs!
Come on, pick up, damn it!